Hello and welcome to Let's Roll It Gaming, the tabletop gaming show where I discuss gaming from a casual perspective. My name is Joshua, and I've been playing games since 2011. I started out with Dungeons and Dragons at that time. I did play miniature games earlier, but it didn't really take because there was no dice mechanic, and it always felt like I ended up being chased around and could never actually do anything. But when I got to Dungeons and Dragons, that opened my world up because by going into Dungeons and Dragons and then finding out about Pathfinder and being interested in Pathfinder, I was at a bookstore getting the Pathfinder beginner box, which, as a starter box, I think is a very good buy, especially the first edition one, because it really walked you through making a map and making a dungeon. But that's for another video. A man at that store, when I was talking to someone about how I like playing role playing games and why, asked, "Hey, have you heard of this game store up the road?" I hadn't, so I went to that store that day, and I was blown away. I didn't realize how big of a hobby tabletop gaming was, with all of the card games, the board games, the dice games, the miniature games, the role playing games. All of this stuff was just overwhelming to me. And I really wanted to go there because I wanted to talk about role playing games. And there was a press ganger there from when Privateer Press owned War Machine and had press gangers. And he talked to me about the Iron Kingdoms role playing game that was coming out later that year. And he also then showed me that people were playing that game, which looked fun. He gave me a demo, which was easy enough to understand the rules and how to play it. And I fell in love with the mechanics. I fell in love with the aesthetic. I love the steampunk, big, stompy robots controlled by magic wizards. It's just an awesome idea. And so I got into that and then branched off there to board games, some board games. Got into Magic for a while. And I got into the other miniature games. I've tried a handful that never really worked out. Um, but I have been building miniatures ever since. And I love this hobby. And so I wanted to take this passion that I have about building miniatures, painting them when I can, playing the games, and just talk to people about this. This is one of those things that I've just loved about having this hobby. It got me out of just playing games at a console. I would always just play single player role playing games. Never got into the online gaming thing because when I grew up playing games, there was no online gaming at the time. It didn't come out till I was older, and it just never really connected with me. And for the first time in my life, I had a social life, which seems weird to say and is such a niche hobby, but it has been something that I have enjoyed ever since. And I've enjoyed the social connections I've made, the people I've talked to, the help I've gotten with painting. And so this is something that I wanted to discuss. And so this show will be a show where I talk about this stuff from a perspective of someone who can't play as much as they would like. And I will talk about news as it comes out, and new releases. I will do some unboxings. I will discuss the painting aspect of it. I will discuss specific games, factions of the games. Just want to talk about this stuff. And so that brings me to the first thing I wanted to talk about, and that is Conquest. It is a game that's been around for a few years now. It came after Warhammer Fantasy blew up and Age of Sigmar started, and it is a rank and file game. And the rank and file games are a little different than the skirmish level games where you're more at like individual group level, just units and guys moving around as a unit, but kind of more loosely. Whereas in the rank and file is usually for bigger battles and with a broader view of the overall field, and you move the units as regiments and they stay together, they face together, and then they kind of wheel together to face their opponent and move forward. And it's a different style game than what I'm used to playing with 40K or War Machine. And I really had wanted to try this type of a game out. And I'm glad that I had a chance to try Conquest out again. A couple years ago, I did try it out, but the Spire miniatures were just a challenge to put together, and it just never really stuck. And I mean, I really liked the GW plastics, so it made it harder for me to get into other systems that had different kinds of plastics because I liked how easy the GW plastic fits together and glues together. But it was nice looking at this system again when I saw that the Ironi were coming out because I like that Oriental aesthetic. I like that idea of Oriental warriors facing off. Plus, they're bigger models. I mean, it already has larger models as it is because it's a 38 millimeter based game as opposed to the 30 millimeter based um, Warhammer 40K game. And these models are all brutes, and that's the thing that really drew me to this faction is the Oriental nature and the size of the models. And so I picked up the Ironi half of the new 2-player starter box that came out at the end of March. And one of the unique things about the Ironi faction is how it does the activation. Because in Conquest, each regiment has a card. And the leader is attached, who also has a card, is attached to a particular regiment. And what ends up happening is you look at your cards, you place them in the order of how you think you want your army to go. And then you put them face down. And then the first person turns, then the next person does their regiment, so you go back and forth that way. And I and the Uroni do it differently. Instead of just having a regiment card that talks about the specific regiment, they have ideals, which each regiment has an ideal, and you turn the ideal card for you have the ideal card for that regiment in your stack. And one of the cool things is, while if you use the ideal associated with your regiment, you get a special ability. If you realize you need to do something differently, you lose that ability if you use a different regiment. Unless you have a character like the Daimo that can make it so that anybody that uses a Kaka card, which is his ideal, gets to use the effect, which is extra bonuses when you charge. And so that difference in how it works really makes it interesting because you can then pivot and change the order. Usually you're going to stick to the order, but it gives you that chance to react to whatever is happening at the time. And I really like that about this faction. And the models, the fact that they're brutes means that they're bigger models, and it's nice having bigger models and less models to put together and move around. I have a hard time moving things around. It just gets to be overwhelming to me. And I've played a handful of factions that have a lot of models. Even some of the ones with the lower model counts, it's still a bit of a challenge. But these models, they went together pretty well. I had one problem with the Kami unit. The third pose, the way that the legs went together, just it was hard to really see how it worked. So I had to get the piece from the next step. I can't remember if it was the back or the torso, but get that piece, put that down, and see how everything connects so that I could glue it together. Other than that, I had no issues. I like putting the models together. The bigger guys just kind of felt like it never ended, but still, I like how the models look. I think that they are beautiful models, and they they were pretty easy to put together so far. I got to play a couple games with these models, and I had a ball. It was really fun being able to get into this new system, learn how it works, and yes, it's only about 830 points or so, but it felt quicker than any of the other games I've played. I tend to have analysis paralysis, and so my turns can take a very long time. And even a 1,000 point game of Age of Sigmar or Warhammer 40,000 is at least going to be 3 hours for me. And I liked how this game did not have that as a problem. It was really quick. And I mean, I won the games, but that was probably just because of who I was facing against. The factions. It was one of them was the Dwegholm, the Dwarves, and the other one was city states. Think like Roman soldiers type of a faction. But it was an easy game to pick up, and it did not feel as quite as complicated and cumbersome as many of the other games that I've played. So I highly suggest giving Conquest a chance. And it's nice doing a game that's not Games Workshop because while I like the model kits, their rules leave something to be desired, and just the way the company functions can be hard to deal with. So thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, let me know. Have a good day.